experience?
A whole lot of that you can't experience on the streets. It's rarely unexplainable. I can't explain it to you. You'd have to go there yourself and see. And I'm not telling you to do shit to get in that position. And I'm just advising young brothers and sisters and whoever that's paying attention to what I'm stressing. That ain't the place to be.
The possibility of him going to jail forever and everything we worked for hard for is just gone. It's blown out the window. I mean, it was a scary time.
Man, they've been putting people in jail for a long time. They've been putting people in jail for a long time. So it was those kind of people in there. Whenever you go to jail, you're dealing with that element, and especially if you're not a celebrity. And when I went to jail, I wasn't a celebrity. I was regular, so I had to deal with the regular situation. So it is what it is.
Snoop Dogg's personal life has been pretty wild from the start. There's no doubt he's a hip-hop legend and one of the most influential rappers in history. He's gained worldwide fame and recognition, but his journey to success was anything but glamorous. Growing up, he developed ties with the notorious Crips gang and found himself in and out of prison multiple times as a teenager. He even ended up in one of the most dangerous prisons as a young teen. It's incredible to see how far Snoop Dogg has come since those days. Let's dive deeper. Growing up, Snoop faced some serious challenges right from the start. His dad took off when Snoop was just 3 months old. Then his stepdad, who he was named after, passed away, leaving his mom to raise 3 boys all on her own. Financially, things were rough. To help out, Snoop took on any job he could find, delivering newspapers, selling candy, and bagging groceries. It was all about pitching in and keeping the family afloat. Despite the struggles, there was a strong sense of togetherness and support within his family. Snoop found solace in music early on, singing and playing piano at the Golgotha Trinity Baptist Church. He was a dedicated student, an enthusiastic churchgoer, active in both the choir and on the football field.
My mama had me leading songs in the choir. I didn't really want to do it, but when you're a kid, you can't really fight your mama and that, man. And my mom was my best friend growing up. She was my mother and my father.
But things took a turn during his teenage years when he started getting involved in unlawful activities and gang life, despite his mom's best efforts to keep him on the straight and narrow.
As I got older, we strayed away from each other because I chose to get involved with gang banging and selling drugs. And if I had a father figure, I wouldn't have been so easy to do it.
As a teenager, Snoop fell in with the notorious Crips gang, diving headfirst into a world of crime. In a candid 2018 interview with Howard Stern, he shared how he idolized the older guys in his neighborhood. Quote, "I was just hanging out, infatuated, looking at the older guys and seeing what they were doing and wanting to be part of it," he said, "and they're welcoming you in because you're young, and as you get older, it's like if you really want to be in a gang, you got to do something now." He went on to explain how the gang life quickly got real. Quote, "Now you've got to prove yourself. It's not a game no more, not a joke no more. It's not just we're hanging out. Nah, we need to do something now." And now it becomes, are you going to be that scary guy or are you going to be that down guy? If you're a part of a gang, you really don't want to be that scary guy.
I was just hanging out, infatuated, looking at the older guys and seeing what they was doing and wanting to be a part of it, and they welcoming you in because you're young. And then as you get older, it's like, okay, well, you really want to be in the gang, you got to do something now. Are you going to be that scary guy or are you going to be that down guy? And if you're a part of a gang, you really don't want to be that scary guy.
The sense of brotherhood and excitement that initially drew him in soon turned into a harsh reality of crime. Snoop's view of gang life changed dramatically when he started facing the brutal consequences firsthand. Reflecting on this period, Snoop revealed his constant fear. Quote, "I was always scared, that's why I believed I survived because you have to either have fear or respect, and I didn't understand respect. So I feared everything, so I was basically moving and grooving trying to figure out what not to do. A lot of times I got shot at. A lot of times I had a gun in my possession and could have shot back. But I was too scared to shoot back because I was so concerned with my life. It's either fight or flight, and most of the time when you're out there, it's flight."
No, I was always scared.
Scared?
I'm scared. That's why I believe I survived, because you have to either have fear or respect. And I didn't understand respect, so I feared everything. Got shot at. A lot of times I had a gun in my possession and could have shot back, but I was too scared to shoot back because I was so concerned with my life. It's either fight or flight, and most of the time when you're out there, it's flight.
At 17, Snoop was still living with his mom, but his involvement with gangs and drugs was too much for her to handle. She eventually kicked him out, feeling unsafe with the people who were constantly coming around. This led to a period of homelessness for the young rapper. He ended up living out of his car, but even that was temporary. One day, he parked on the wrong side of the street, and his car, along with all his clothes and possessions inside, got towed away.
Started selling drugs out of my mama's house, and she didn't know this. So before you know it, we outside one day and they come by and do a drive-by. My little brother outside.
You're not gonna be selling no dope in my house. Bringing all that motherfuckers shooting over here. Then she put him out. Oh yeah, she was no joke. Snoop was sleeping in a Camaro.
Throughout his time involved with gangs, Snoop had several run-ins with the law. Right after graduating from Long Beach Polytechnic High School in 1989, he was arrested for possession. For the next 3 years, he was in and out of jail, including time spent at Wayside Jail. Now, if you don't already know, Wayside Jail is one of the toughest prisons out there. I mean, prisons are dangerous places in general, but Wayside, also known as the Pitchess Detention Center, takes it to another level. This place houses some of the most notorious inmates you can think of, the worst of the worst. And this is where Snoop Dogg found himself when he was just a teenager. Even Snoop himself has said that it was one of the most terrible places he's ever been, especially when you're not a celebrity. As a celebrity, you get some level of protection and special treatment, but Snoop wasn't famous yet when he landed there. He was right in the thick of it, dealing with the regular, everyday dangers that come with prison life.
Man, they've been putting people in jail for a long time. They've been putting people in jail for a long time. So it was those kind of people in there. Whenever you go to jail, you dealing with that element, and especially if you're not a celebrity. When I went to jail, I wasn't a celebrity. I was regular, so I had to deal with the regular situation. So it is what it is.
For example, take the riot that happened back in '06. This was no ordinary prison brawl. It was a full-blown war between Black and Latino inmates, leaving many injured and dead. The rioting went on for more than 2 weeks, involving thousands of prisoners across several facilities. More than 100 were injured, many critically, and 2 inmates were. The first outbreak of which was reportedly sparked by the Mexican mafia trying to establish dominance over rival black gangs, involved hundreds of inmates. Outdated plumbing had forced sheriff's deputies to cram 500 extra inmates into an already overcrowded wing of the jail, which helped ignite the situation. By the next evening, well over 2,000 inmates were caught up in the chaos, using makeshift weapons and even hurling bunk beds from the upper stories of the jail onto the brawling inmates below. To regain control, hundreds of law enforcement officers from all over Southern California were called in. Despite their efforts firing tear gas, pepper bombs, and sting ball grenades, the guards could not contain the riot for nearly a day. 10 inmates were sent to local hospitals for emergency treatment, and one inmate, Wayne Tisner, a 45-year-old black man, was found beaten to death. Tisner was awaiting trial for failing to register with local police as a S offender. In response to the LA County Sheriff Lee Baca ordered a system-wide lockdown and halted all visits in the county's 6 jails, which housed over 20,000 inmates. Despite a 2005 Supreme Court ruling that racial segregation of prisoners is unconstitutional, the Sheriff's Department ordered Black and Latino inmates to be placed in separate cells. But these emergency measures weren't enough to stop the More fighting erupted that Sunday night and again on Monday, February 6, 2006. Just when it seemed like things were calming down on February 9th, another conflict broke out among 200 Latino and Black inmates less than an hour after officials gave the media a guided tour of the Pitchess Detention Center. The rioting continued for 4 more days, leading to a second death. 38-year-old Black inmate Sean Anthony Thompson, who was at Men's Central Jail while trying to help an older inmate under attack by 3 Latino inmates. Sheriff Baca even sought help from the Catholic Cardinal of the Diocese of Los Angeles, Roger M. Mahony, in an attempt to end the riots. The goal is to start a dialogue with the Latino inmates in such a fashion that they're appealing to their common good as human beings, Baca said. As the dragged into a second week, Baca faced increasing criticism from both law and order politicians and Black officials. Right-wing County Supervisor Michael Antonovich, known for his tough stance on crime, said the department should have done more to protect Black inmates. After yet another outbreak of on February 18th, Baca ordered more than 100 inmates to strip naked and be left with only blankets for 24 hours with their mattresses taken away. This move drew sharp criticism. Mark Rosenbaum, legal director of the American Civil Liberties Union of Southern California, told the Los Angeles Times, quote, "We would be horrified if these methods had taken place at Abu Ghraib. However effective or ineffective, humiliation and degradation is not a proper procedure for discipline." Another riot broke out at Wayside in 2021, leaving people injured yet again. This incident kicked off just after 3 p.m. when deputies were doing their usual security checks in the dorms, according to the LA County Sheriff's Department. Apparently, one inmate decided to attack a deputy, and then, like a scene out of a movie, other inmates jumped in. The situation escalated quickly. More deputies arrived to try and control the chaos using pepper spray to subdue about 20 to 25 inmates. Despite their efforts, 7 deputies and a custody assistant ended up injured, with the assistant and 6 deputies needing hospital treatment, though thankfully their injuries were not life-threatening. 2 2 inmates were also injured and taken to the hospital. The jail went into lockdown for several hours after the riot to regain control. Now, imagine how much worse things were back in the 90s when Snoop Dogg was there, especially as a young boy with no celebrity status to protect him. This was not the only time Snoop had run-ins with the law, but one incident in particular almost derailed his entire life and career. Though Snoop was heavily involved in gangs and drugs for much of his life, he never wanted that to be his forever. He's admitted that he struggled mentally with the decision to leave that life behind, fearing that it might make him a target, not just of hate, but of against him and his family. Snoop's prudence and constant awareness helped him navigate these dangerous waters. His love for rap also played a crucial role. He recalled how rapping in the hallways at school would draw such big crowds that the principal would think there was a fight going on. This made him realize he had a gift that interested people, which in turn made him interested in himself. Snoop persevered, making music on the side, and eventually found refuge at Death Row Records, leaving the gang culture behind to pursue stardom. 1993 was a simpler time for Snoop Dogg. Back then, Doggy Style was just known as a harmless S-position, and a young Tupac Shakur was just starting to take over the rap game. It was a time before the tragic events that would unfold in the hip-hop world. Over the years, Snoop Dogg has managed to completely overhaul his image, transforming from a G-Funk gangster to a squeaky clean media mogul, rubbing shoulders with some of the biggest names in the industry. But many people have forgotten that in 1993, Snoop Dogg actually caught a body and spent the next 2 years of his rising career with a charge hanging over his head. On August 24th, 1993, Snoop was involved in an altercation outside his apartment. Allegedly, Snoop had a run-in with Philip Voldemariam, another Crip from a different set. Voldemariam was upset about Snoop moving in on his turf. This guy was already known to Snoop, having threatened and insulted him before, and had just gotten out of jail for firing a gun in a schoolyard. The altercation supposedly started when someone in Snoop's crew flashed a gang sign at Voldemariam while driving by. Feeling disrespected, Voldemariam shouted back, "F y'all," asserting his claim over the territory. Things escalated quickly from there. Several people jumped into Snoop's Jeep, and according to the prosecution, they followed Voldemariam and his crew for a few blocks before losing them. However, Snoop's version of events was different, claiming they were just heading to the studio and not following Voldemariam. Not long after, they spotted Voldemariam and his friends at a nearby park having a picnic. They pulled up, and Voldemariam let them know they were on his turf. At this point, Snoop's bodyguard McKinley Lee stood up out of the top of the convertible Jeep.
Snoop had gotten into an altercation verbally with this kid, Philip Voldemariam, and so they had been arguing a few different times, and I think it was a little gang taunting going back and forth.
A heated exchange followed. Someone in Snoop's car reportedly shouted, "You ain't letting us know nothing, punk," to which Voldemariam responded, "Oh, I'm a punk," and slowly reached for his waistband, presumably for his .380. Snoop's bodyguard Lee saw the move and quickly fired off 5 shots, dropping Voldemariam. Snoop hit the gas and sped off, leaving Voldemariam dead at the scene.
He had a gun and, he was going for it. And my bodyguard reacted, like he was supposed to do.
Snoop's bodyguard shot and Philip Voldemariam.
The Buy Yourself Hustler crew, trying to cover for their friend, took the gun from Voldemariam's body and hid it. Investigators eventually found the weapon a few months later. If that wasn't wild enough, Snoop Dogg decided to go on the run, evading the cops for an entire week. Allegedly, when the incident went down, Snoop told management everything, but instead of turning him in, they kept it quiet.
I did receive the phone call about what happened. We didn't turn Snoop in right then and there. Snoop was in hiding for a little bit.
Apparently, Snoop wanted to surrender, but Suge Knight, the head honcho at Death Row Records, had other ideas. Suge saw the charge, and Snoop being on the run as prime publicity for Snoop's upcoming album, Doggy Style.
So I took him because I knew one thing. For me to make this dude the most hottest artist in the world, people gotta see him. But at the same time, it's his job to be an artist and promote this stuff. And then when they come to arrest him, it's my job to get him out of there.
Suge came up with a plan to ensure Snoop could still make an appearance at the '93 VMAs before turning himself in. So Snoop showed up at the VMAs, cool as ever, doing chilled out interviews with Dr. Dre and even presenting the award for Best R&B. All this while knowing he had a charge hanging over his head and that he'd be arrested right after the event.
Dr. Dre and Snoop Doggy Dogg.
Yo,
thanks for
what's
being
up?
here, guys.
What's happening?
Let him go on, and that then he would quietly go out and turn himself in, venom on your back. He knew his freedom might be at stake.
And the winner is, and vote.
Suge discreetly arranged for Snoop to be taken in by the LAPD once his appearances were done. Now, when we say discreet, considering it's the LAPD, it's probably involved a few broken ribs and some crack found on him. But miraculously, Snoop was bailed out for a whopping $1 million bond put up by none other than Suge Knight. But it took about 2 years for the case to actually go to trial. Meanwhile, with a rap over his head, Snoop dropped Doggy Style in November '93, just 3 months after the incident, and man did it blow up. The album sold 800,000 copies in its first week and over 4 million copies by the end of the next year. A big part of the hype was thanks to the track Was the Case, which fans absolutely lost their minds over. In 1994, Snoop took things to another level by releasing a short film to accompany the song, also titled Was the Case. This semi-autobiographical flick, directed by Dr. Dre and Fab 5 Freddy, showed Snoop getting into a gang altercation and having a shootout. In the film, he gets but makes a deal with the devil to come back to life and do it all over again. Some people saw this as a smart move to sway public opinion and influence the jury, painting Snoop as a victim acting in self-defense. That same year, Snoop closed out with an epic performance at the VMAs, rolling out on stage in a wheelchair, probably a nod to his role in the film, and ending his performance by proclaiming his innocence.
He was innocent.
I'm innocent.
Despite the theatrics, the legal system wasn't about to let him off the hook just yet, and he still had to face trial. The media was all over the place with this case. The Daily Star even ran a front-page story calling Snoop an evil while others showed their support. With the evidence compiled and Snoop riding high on the success of Doggy Style and his short film, it was finally time for him to face the music in '95. Snoop assembled his dream legal team, bringing in the legendary Johnny Cochran fresh off the O.J. Simpson case. Suge and Snoop allegedly shelled out $500,000 for Cochran's itchy trigger finger package, guaranteeing one get-out-of-free card. The defense argued that the LAPD had been sloppy in their investigation. They lost the shell casings weapon and the victim's body clothes, suggesting that the police had been destroying evidence. But the LAPD fired back, saying, "No, we weren't destroying evidence, we were just hiding it." The prosecutors pushed for a charge, claiming Snoop had directed his bodyguard McKinley Lee to shoot the victim in a drive-by while Snoop was driving the Jeep he owned. The prosecution brought in 24 witnesses to back up their case, but this backfired spectacularly. The sheer number of witnesses led to conflicting accounts and confusion for the jury. The defense kept it simple, calling just one witness and putting pressure on the prosecution, who essentially had to admit that their side had destroyed evidence. The entire prosecution ended up being held in contempt of court. Snoop recalled his lawyers delivering an emotional set of closing remarks that moved him and members of the jury to tears.
When he did his closing argument, you know what I'm saying? Because it brought him to tears, it brought me to tears, and a couple of jurors to tears. Because he was actually telling them, I'm not representing Snoop Doggy Dogg for Snoop Doggy Dogg.
By February 1996, the not guilty verdict came in. Snoop and his bodyguard Lee were completely acquitted of Lee got off on a self-defense basis, while Snoop faced and accessory charges that eventually ended in a mistrial and didn't go any further. Following the verdict, Snoop gave an emotional interview with MTV where he clarified some of the facts of the case and took the opportunity to throw some shade at the prosecution.
He knew we was not guilty. He knew that. He knew McKinley Lee acted in self-defense. McKinley Lee is never, ever, ever, ever been involved with gangs. So what's the whole case about? Oh, it's about Snoop Dogg being gang affiliated, but Snoop Dogg didn't pull the trigger. He drove the car away from his bodyguard acting in self-defense. But if you look at them, they don't care about that.
After Snoop Dogg got acquitted, he had a serious wake-up call. He publicly denounced the gangster lifestyle, saying he realized if he kept trying to live that way, he'd end up dead or locked up. With this new outlook, he decided to make some big changes in his life. First up, he moved his family into a sprawling 5,000 square foot mansion on the outskirts of LA, leaving the old life behind. His next album, The Dogfather, dropped after Tupac's tragic death and had a noticeably different vibe. It was way more G-funk and way less gangster rap. This shift in style was a clear sign Snoop was evolving as an artist and as a person. However, things weren't all smooth sailing. Snoop was reportedly at odds with Death Row Records and Suge Knight over royalty payments. The tension kept building until he finally managed to break free from Death Row in '98. Snoop then signed with Master P's No Limit Records, and that move turned out to be a game changer. Snoop continued to evolve his career. In '02, he released the album Paid the Cost to Be the Boss on Priority Capital EMI, which sold over 1.3 million copies. The album featured hit singles like From the Chooch to the Palace and Beautiful, with guest vocals by Pharrell. That same year, Snoop appeared in the remix of Welcome to Atlanta by Jermaine Dupri. By this point, Snoop had left behind his gangster image and adopted a new persona, embracing a pimp image. Snoop's talents extend beyond music. He has appeared in numerous films and TV shows throughout his career. He starred in movies like The Wash alongside Dr. Dre and the horror film Bones. He also co-starred with Wiz Khalifa in the 2012 movie Mac and Devin Go to High School, with a sequel announced. Snoop has taken on various supporting and cameo roles showcasing his versatility as an actor. In 2005, he founded Snoopadelic Films, and their debut project was Bossin' Up, inspired by his album RNG and starred Lil Jon and Trina. Over the years, Snoop has sold over 23 million albums in the United States and 35 million albums worldwide. His accolades include an American Music Award, a Primetime Emmy Award, and 17 Grammy Award nominations. Overall, Snoop Dogg went on to have an incredible career, dropping hit after hit and cementing himself as one of the most culturally significant icons, not just in hip-hop, but in pop culture as a whole.